Yes, people, Manscaped is back, but this time it's not for below the belt grooming. Manscaped brings to you the Beard Hedger, the best product on the market when it comes to beard trimmers. The Beard Hedger is unique due to its number of gradient settings. As someone who's purchased this, I won't turn to any other beard trimmer. Check it out for yourself at manscaped.com. And don't forget to use code FTM20 to get 20% off of this product.
Yes, people, back again. 12 man's back. Gooners back. I've got a good friend of the channel, good friend of the show, and good friend of mine, Tom Canton, back in the building. How are you, Tom? You good, bro?
Yeah, good, man. Yourself?
I'm very well, mate. After last night's performance, I'm even better, mate. I must say that was very impressive, which I'm looking forward to getting into last night's result. You was obviously there in the press box watching the game.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about your thoughts on it. It was good to see a lot of the players, actually, to be fair, because I know we've got a couple of injuries at the moment, but it was good to see most people get a run out. So we're going to talk about that. Please make sure, if you're not doing so already, that you're already following Tom over at the Gooner Talk TV. Very similar format to what I do, and I can't take any credit for it. It was actually Tom who made me think of the idea for my morning show in the Transfer News show. So make sure you're doing the same for Tom over at the Gooner Talk TV for all Arsenal transfers. 8 o'clock every single morning. I still don't know how you do that 7 days a week. 5 days a week is hard enough for me, mate. So big up to you, bro. So make sure you go following Tom on all social media platforms and YouTube. Make sure you've hit the like button, people. Make sure you've hit subscribe. Make sure that you are also helping Manscaped, who, of course, are helping us. So please make sure that you click on the link, and then all you need to do is go and get the Beard Hedger. You'll have 20% off of it, and it'll be all yours. And that deal is not happening for much longer, so please make sure that you do not miss out on it. Tom, let's talk all things Arsenal. Let's talk last night, because last night was a very impressive performance. I wanted to get just your general thoughts on how you felt it was watching it, because there was a few performers that I thought stood out, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, mate.
Yeah, it was a really impressive performance, actually, and it was good because obviously the game against Liverpool was... The result was disappointing. The performance weren't like terrible against Liverpool by any means. There was positives, there were negatives in that game. But obviously after a defeat, you want to respond well, even though it's a pre-season game, and obviously get kind of the good feeling back on side. And Arsenal certainly did that. And they did that with complete dominance, you know. And I know that Bayer Leverkusen got back into the game in the second half and scored, but that was definitely more to do with like the fact that we brought on 4 kids, and some of the depth players as well in the second half too. But yeah, some really encouraging performances, which I'm sure we'll go into as well in more detail. But to see that, you know, that level of just how we imposed ourselves on the other side, Bayer Leverkusen, you know, are no mugs, and they played, you know, plenty of their key players like Wirtz and of course Granit Xhaka, who returned as well, who actually ended up helping us a bit out with our 4th goal, which I'm sure you found ironically very funny. Yeah, it was really good.
It was really good, and it's a strange thing to do, but I'm actually going to start at the back because when you score 4 goals, you think, let's go at the top and see who scored those goals and how we scored them, etc. I absolutely love the partnership of Gabriel and Saliba, Tom. I think it's so good, man. It is so underrated and underappreciated. And I think in pre-season in the United States, we didn't see Saliba, and I think it showed, bro. I think it did. As much as I was a big fan of what Timber did, and also I believe Heaven deserves a lot of credit, I will say it's just levels, mate, when you've got Saliba in the team. And I actually felt yesterday Ben White, who I thought was fine, but Saliba and Gabriel together, superb. Gabriel in particular was an absolute beast, a monster yesterday yet again. And I have to say, as much as I hate him defensively, I thought Zinchenko had a really good game offensively. Yeah. I thought he was really good. And if I'm honest, probably, you know, needed that, in my opinion. New number 17 on his back. Maybe that's going to make him play a little bit like KDB, who's also got that number on the back of his shirt. But certainly for me, I thought he deserved a lot of praise yesterday. I thought that was a hell of a strike for the first goal. I thought it was wonderful. So talk me about the back line and Zinchenko in particular.
Yeah, I think obviously with Timber and Calafiori in their situations, which we may talk about in a bit, it looks all the more likely that Zinchenko will be the starting left back, maybe at the start of the season. Calafiori, of course, might get some minutes the weekend, but I'd be surprised if that then leads into a start, you know, against Wolves. But the way in which obviously he breaks opposition teams down when he gets into that final third, that's what makes him the asset to the team when he's useful in those scenarios. And I agree with you in the sense that, defensively there are flaws, there are drawbacks and vulnerabilities when he plays. And you're reliant upon other players like Rice and Gabriel and Jorginho or Partey, to cover off those drawbacks in his game. But as was showcased yesterday, it is the influence he has in the final third. He's brilliant at picking when he picks those passes in that final third. And I know he's got a bit of a clang in him at sometimes when he doesn't make a decision quick enough. He can get swarmed, and if the opposition do swarm him, he's not quick enough to sometimes make the sensible pass backwards, and he's still always looking to go forwards. But when he does break into those spaces and has time to make his decisions, he's so lethal with those movements. And it was a really good finish as well. You don't really associate goals with Zinny. I think his last goal was against Burnley, which was that brilliant volley. And then he scored at Aston Villa as well in the season before last. So he doesn't tend to score too many goals. And getting the finish that he got was a really great movement in the build-up to that goal as well. And of course, Trossard leaving it from Havertz's backwards cross was sublime in the end.
It was. Tom, are we ever going to see Zinchenko in midfield at all at Arsenal? Because a lot of people ask me all the time, why do we play him as a left back? He doesn't play there for Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. We hear that quite a lot, but Arteta's never looked to try to play him in the midfield, to be fair. I mean, I know he plays there a lot in the inverted role, but is there a chance that we might see that in this coming season, do you think?
I doubtful. He's never done it. Like, Arteta's just never put him in that position. So a lot of my listeners as well ask me the same question. Would I play him in there? It gets to the point now is like, I feel like I've addressed this so many times. Like, for me, I don't know when I would, because there's always somebody better that I would pick anyway in midfield over Zinchenko, that I don't know when I would play him there. You could bring him on as a substitute. I remember there was a game, I don't know if it was last season, but he came on as a sub and played on the right wing. Do you remember? I can't remember what game it was, but he came off the bench and played in a really strange area. But that was an experiment that clearly didn't, ring true of Arteta, because it never happened again. But I think that there is, he plays there for his nation. I just don't ever see the time when it's going to happen. But maybe it's something we try if we have an injury crisis or something. But with us aiming to sign a midfielder, it's probably going to mean that it's even less likely to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's going to be anything other than a left back at Arsenal. And I actually agree with you with Calafiori and Timber not sure on their fitness. It looks like he could start the first game against Wolves at left back. Talking about players in midfield, we saw Kai Havertz play there again. One of his better games. And I must say, in the last two that he's played there, he's actually scored 2 goals and got assists as well. He's definitely got used to that position a little bit more, but it's not really something I want to see in the long term. However, what I will say, Tom, is I thought his telepathy and the link-up play with Jesus was very, very clear to see. And I thought the pair of them were actually playing quite well last night. Wanted to get thoughts on Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus, who, let's be real, have got a lot of pressure on this season to score some goals, because if Arsenal don't get that number 9 that we all crying out for, then it's on them to score the goals. What did you think of both those performances, mate?
Yeah, I've been really happy with, obviously, our goal scoring feats always. Last season, we continue to have this record of goal scoring that just improves time on time. And all of our attacking options other than Vieira in the first half, were really good. And Jesus, Trossard, Havertz, their positioning on the field was excellent. And the way I thought in particular how Jesus, Havertz and Trossard kind of interlinked, and how their movement between one another and their understanding of where one another were was also really, really good. So, and they're all, obviously all of them are our centre forward options as well, ironically, all on the pitch at the same time. So I think going into the season, there's going to be a lot of question marks about Havertz again in terms of where he plays. They're not going to be the questions we had last season of, is he good enough? We know that he's good enough. We know that he can produce some fantastic performances for us, and he's been a really important part of the second half of last season. But the second half of last season was him playing as a centre forward, not in midfield. And me and you have sat here and talked at length about how our preference is for him not to be in midfield for us. But the last 2 games against Liverpool and Bayer Leverkusen, he's been really good in midfield. 2 assists, of course, in the first half. His movement was really good. His timing of his pressing was really, really good. I said on my show this morning, I was chatting to Sam Dean at half time, and Sam pointed out that at the start of last season, when Havertz was in midfield with Ødegaard, it was Havertz that was pressing, like really hard pressing, and Ødegaard was kind of more sitting in. Whereas in these last 2 games, it's actually been Havertz that is more timely when he presses, whereas Ødegaard's been given the freedom to kind of just do his thing, which wasn't the case at the start of last season. He thinks that may have had an impact on top of all of the, the transitions of Havertz moving into a new team, etc. And he's going into this season as a player that's now got a year under his belt. He knows the team, he knows the system, he knows his players. He's not got the same level of scrutiny surrounding him as he did at the start of last season. I think he's free to go into it. And then someone like Trossard, I thought Trossard was brilliant, again as well. His movement, his finishing. I love the little kind of Jesus-esque fake shot touch to the ball to the right and pass into the open net. Like, that was great. So, it looks really positive for our players that aren't tended to be the centre forwards. The players that are around them are contributing goals, which is important.
Well, let's stay with the four that I want to talk about, which is Ødegaard, Havertz, Jesus, and Trossard. Because last night I thought they were amazing. If I'm honest, I thought going forward it was actually quite easy for Arsenal in the first half hour. I've got to say, I know that Bayer Leverkusen are a top side, and I understand that perhaps pre-season you can't get too carried away, but there were some top players on the pitch there, Tom. It wasn't like I didn't recognise any of these guys. Do you know what I mean? You had Granit Xhaka out there, Florian Wirtz out there.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say quality player and then said Granit Xhaka? Is that what you just said?
Yeah. Well, he is a quality player now because he's invincible, isn't he? So he's got to be a quality player. He wasn't so quality last night in certain games. It wasn't the best return for him. I think getting battered 4-1. But I will say that I was really impressed with us going forward. You mentioned Trossard. I think the quick feet, I can see why people are talking about Sani Cazorla and Alexander Hleb, because I do think he's got that technical ability about him. I also thought he was by far one of our best players last night. He actually got my man of the match. It was an absolute delight watching Trossard. It was just beautiful to watch. And I said this to Lee Judges and deluded earlier because I've been on a couple of streams today. I actually think he's underrated at how good of a January transfer this was. I think it goes under the radar too much.
I don't know who's better. I struggle to think of a better. I know some people say Aubameyang.
Same.
It's between Aubameyang and Trossard, and I'm struggling otherwise.
Well, let me tell you why I think it's Trossard. And this is not taking anything away from Aubameyang, because Aubameyang was incredible for us. Scored an unbelievable amount of goals, right? But when we signed Aubameyang, we were in a very different position. We were trying to get into the Champions League. There was the whole Arsene Wenger situation and the Unai Emery situation. We're in a little bit of disarray, to be fair. Now that we are settled, because we are, there's no more for me. There's no more. I'll give it a few more years. This is a settled team now that's ready to go and compete. And we have done that in the last 2 seasons with Trossard. We never did that with Aubameyang. Now, you might look at that and think, oh, that's harsh on Aubameyang because he wasn't in the team that surrounded him. And you could say that's fair, right? But I think what Trossard has done more than what Aubameyang done is when we signed Aubameyang, we knew he was playing. He was playing up top. He was going to be the striker. He was banging in goals. When we signed Trossard, he was actually coming in behind Martinelli, who at the time was scoring, I think, 15 goals that season. What Trossard did, though, was contribute that season between January and May. Yeah, we didn't get across the line, but actually he got a lot of goals and assists. He was playing in a number of positions, whether it be false 9, whether it be on the wing. I think he played attacking 8 a couple of times as well. And the season just gone likewise. He did exactly the same thing, but scored more goals than anyone other than Bukayo Saka. So I actually think this is the best January transfer that Arsenal have made, ahead of Arshavin, ahead of Aubameyang. And to be fair, I can't even think of the others. They're that kind of insignificant.
Reyes,
when you look at it. Reyes is a great shout, to be fair, because obviously he did come on and he is an invincible. So that's a very, very good shout. I actually forgot about him. I don't know how, because he was one of my favourite players when we signed him. But I honestly believe this Trossard deal, maybe I'm going over the top with it then, but I just feel like he has not been looked at as, I think people look at Trossard and go, oh yeah, he's one of them squad players who's quite good. He's more than that to me. Like, he's actually one of our starters who I think is at the moment ahead of Martinelli still. And I love Martinelli. I mean, he's one of my favourite players, Martinelli. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we need to put a lot of credit on what Trossard's done, is what I'm saying, Tom.
Yeah, rightfully so. And to come into a team and kind of push out Martinelli of how good he was and how highly rated he still is, as a player as well. That is impressive. He's probably the best finisher at the club. If a chance falls to a player, it's probably Trossard I want it to fall to, which is frustrating because he probably missed the biggest chance we had last season in that game against Aston Villa. But 99 times out of 100, I would back him to finish these chances. And I think going into next season, he's going to have another really important campaign where he pops up in really big moments and gets the goals that we need. But I also think that it is another season for Martinelli as well to rise again, to re-establish himself, and to push Trossard back onto the bench. And that's what you hope for, because to do that is going to take some top performances from Martinelli.
Facts. And listen, I actually went on record and said that I think Martinelli will have a very good season in an Arsenal shirt if we sort out our left-hand side, and I still stand by that. But rightly so, he's got to get into the first team first because Trossard is absolutely flying. And like you say, that second goal or Trossard goal, that was just genius. You know, you got a defender on you and you sold them down the river like that. That is just spectacular. And I was really impressed. I was also, Tom, really impressed with Martin Ødegaard yet again. I honestly believe this player's getting better and better and better. And I think this pre-season, actually, he's looked refreshed. He's looked fresh because of having no Euros. I think he's been head and shoulders above everybody else, if I'm honest with you, mate. I think Martin Ødegaard at the moment is one of Arsenal's best players, if not the best player. I look at everything about him. He's so relaxed, calm, composed. He's effortless on the ball. He's got all the time in the world, it seems, whenever he receives the ball as well. And you can't deny the work rate and the press and how he leads from the press as well, leads from the example. I honestly believe that we've got someone special here. And I remember when we signed him, I thought, oh, he looks all right. And then the next season when we signed him, I thought, oh, that's a bit of a strange one. I didn't think we were going to sign him. I didn't think he was that good. I thought he was all right, but fair enough. And then I remember questioning his goals and assists, thinking, is this guy actually going to score for us? Like 4 goals, 8.5 and 7 assists. And the next season is just absolutely obliterated it. And last season, good as well. It's just got better and better for me, Tom Martin Ødegaard. I really think he is one of the better players now, bro.
Yeah, I've said he's world class for a long, long time, and I believe he's one of the best players in the Premier League. You know, he's a player that deserves trophies alongside his name, and I believe he is a guy that will take us toward that. And he'll be a key figure if Arsenal win the league next season. He could be potentially our most important player in doing that, and that's a testament to how good he is. That his touches, his quickness of thought, even the build up to the second goal, Trossard's brilliant, and it's all about Trossard, that second goal, because he wins the ball back, but he plays it straight to Ødegaard because you're trusting Ødegaard to play the right pass, which he does into Jesus and then into Havertz and then back to Trossard. I love what fans have coined as the ozone area, in that box, where he kind of pops up around the D for shooting opportunities. I want him to score more goals. I think he can score more goals. But yeah, he's invaluable. And as we talked about before, yes, there's a depth issue with Ødegaard. But Nwaneri came on the second half and looked bright again. I'd personally, if Ødegaard's not there, I don't think it's over the top to suggest I'd rather Nwaneri was played over Vieira. I just think Nwaneri's going to give you more, at this stage. So, but if you lose Ødegaard, it's regardless of signings, regardless of who's there, it's a huge loss, and it would be felt as it was when we didn't have him, at Newcastle last season.
Yeah, he is phenomenal, and I honestly believe that we have got a real talent here. Before I come on to Vieira and the 2 youngsters that I want to talk about, Jesus has looked very, very sharp, mate, and definitely looks fitter, definitely looks stronger. I said on a show the other night with Kenny Ken and Northside and Alex from Fodder on Football that I think Jesus is probably the player who has the biggest season ahead of him, because I do feel that after the last couple where it's been injury prone, he's definitely in need of a run of games and a season where he's definitely needs no injuries, just to see what he can do, because he's so versatile, can play across that front three. He definitely does know where the goal is, although it might not be 20 or 30. He can get 14 or 15, in my opinion. And I do love everything about him as a footballer, Tom. It has to be said. He's a very, very talented bloke. So what do you think of this player? And this season for him is going to be big, isn't it?
Yeah, without question, it was really important that he scored yesterday. I thought the goalkeeper could have maybe done a little bit better with the strike. And, I think there's a misconception that goes around about Jesus. The first pre-season he had was excellent, and that led into obviously a really strong start to the time with us. But there's this misconception that he always turns up in pre-season, which isn't the case, because there's years gone by where he's not even been able to play pre-season games because of issues and injuries. He obviously missed the start of last season, didn't play in the Community Shield, didn't play in the cup game against, the Emirates Cup game against Monaco, because he was out injured. So this idea that he always has a good pre-season is not true, because obviously he's not been present. When he does have a pre-season, it does tend to lead into, a good start to the season, like we saw in 2022, which was a really good start to the campaign. So I'm hoping that's the case. I'm really torn about how Arteta now chooses to line up against Wolves, because Havertz has been so good in these couple of games, which isn't enough to it doesn't convince me he's a midfielder because he needs to do far, far more over a longer period of time to do that. But what it does do is it opens up this possibility. And I always feel like you need to choose your best team. You have to choose your best team for the Premier League games. And at the moment, the best team is, I think, Havertz and Ødegaard playing together and Jesus there, but with this tweaked system of who's pressing at what time and the freedom that Ødegaard's got, I think Jesus at the moment probably does start that game against Wolves, and we move from there. And I really hope that he does have the big season that we're all awaiting.
Yeah, so do I, man. I really do. I feel like this season is his season and one that he needs to take as best he can. Let's talk a little bit about Fabio Vieira, because of all of the players last night, I didn't really think he had a great game. I thought he was fairly weak again. It was definitely a game that I didn't think was one of his better games. But I'm starting to run out of games where he's had a good game now, Tom. I think I have to go back quite a while now before we actually look at how good this player has been for Arsenal. And 2 seasons now, 38 million. It's certainly one of the misses of the transfer market that Edu and Arteta have been involved in. And I also don't think that it's going to be a player that lasts at the club. I just don't see a future for him here. I understand potentially Arteta and Edu might, but I just don't, man. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this player anymore.
Yeah, he was one of those that kind of came out the blue in 22? We signed him.
Yeah.
And he's just, injuries have just obviously taken a hold of his time with us, because there was little kind of twinklings of real promise at times from him. I remember at the start of last season, he was coming off the bench and doing really. He started because of his form. He started as people were calling for the North London derby at home, but didn't have a good game in that North London derby at home. So I think this probably will be his final season. But I say that, we haven't seen any interest in him this summer at all. No one's really come in for him this summer. Why would that change next summer if he's not really played? I just hope he stays fit, because if he stays fit, that means he can play games. He can get opportunities. But yesterday was an opportunity and he didn't take it. And when you don't take those chances given to you, I know it's not his best position. I know he's best more internally. But anytime you're on the pitch, you have to be so front-footed in those moments as a player that's on the fringes. And if you're coming on and, getting the ball but passing it backwards and, not necessarily trying too much, and when you do try little things that they're not really coming off, that's never going to change the situation. And that's where I am with him at the moment.
Yeah, I just don't like what I see from the type of player. I just think he's very lightweight, weak, brush off the ball too easily. I don't think he's physically ready for this league. I feel like he might have to go back to Portugal or maybe La Liga to try and get a run of games, because I just don't see him suited to this style of play in this league. And I just worry because, we're keeping hold of him and doesn't look like anybody wants him. I mean, I'm not really sure that anyone would want him, to be fair. To be honest, but I'm with something you said earlier, which is if Ødegaard gets a knock, I'm playing Ethan Nwaneri over Fabio Vieira. He's certainly not a right winger as far as I'm concerned. Anything that I did see that was okay from Fabio Vieira come from the other side of the pitch, either as a left 8 or as a left winger. So I don't really see why we're playing him on the right hand side still and sticking with that. But Mikel Arteta must see something there and believe that's his position. But I wanted to talk about 2 players that definitely did take their chance when given to him, and let's be real, have done the whole of this pre-season, man. It's the 2 youngsters, man. Miles Lewis-Skelly and, of course, Ethan Nwaneri. Really impressive how Miles come on and played at left back again. It looks like he's played with us for ages. He's very comfortable on the ball, looks very confident. But Ethan Nwaneri looks special, bro. Honestly, I think he looks an absolute talent. And I know that we sometimes get carried away by that because we want our youngsters to do well. Perhaps we were speaking about this with Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson once, right? But the way I see it, honestly, is something different here. I look at Ethan Nwaneri and I think, yeah, you could be something very special. So I wanted to get your thoughts on these 2 lads, bro.
Yeah, I think Nwaneri obviously stole the show in America of all the kids, but I thought yesterday Miles Lewis-Skelly was the better player. I thought he was the standout of all the kids that came on. He was so confident on the ball. And this is what I mean about like Vieira, what I said a second ago. When you're on the fringes and you come on, you have to take the initiative. If you come on and you're just taking the ball and playing it safe, you're taking it and just passing it backwards, you're not going to grab anyone's attention. And Miles Lewis-Skelly was taking the ball, pirouetting around players, playing it forwards, which is what you want, what Arteta wants from those youngsters as well. You have to showcase confidence. That's what I'm always looking at when a young player comes on. And, Sago Jr., I think, was a good example in Brentford when he played. When Sago Jr. came on against Brentford, every time he got the ball, he played the safe option. And that, even in those small moments, I don't want to, judge someone necessarily off one performance, but in the small moments that you see now, I'm like, I'm not convinced this guy's got it. Whereas Nwaneri and Skelly, whenever they're on the ball, it's just drive forwards, play forwards, create something, do something. And that's what you get. That's what I got from Saka when he obviously first burst on the scene. That's what I got from Smith Rowe when he first kind of burst into the side as well. They're players that want to make stuff happen. They're players that want to do stuff. And that's what you look for. And yeah, I just pray that they get the minutes that they deserve this year.
I mean, how does that happen for you, Tom? Is it Champions League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup games? Do you think they'll get some league performances they can come on?
Yeah, I think they absolutely should be on the bench for Premier League games. I think that if you're in a position where you've got a choice between Vieira and Nwaneri being on the bench, or Nwaneri and Nelson being on the bench, even though I've talked up Nelson, I think that his time at Arsenal will be heading towards an end. If I'm investing time in a player, the choice is between investing minutes into Nwaneri, Nelson, or Vieira. I'm investing those minutes into Nwaneri. So I would, without question, put him on the bench in games. League Cup games, he should be starting. Even if we get drawn against Premier League opposition, I think he should be starting those games. So, yeah, on the bench for those Prem games. But for the Cup games, we need to be getting him into the team. I don't mean like rotating everybody out. I mean, Nwaneri starts these League Cup games at the beginning, but starts them with key figures from the Premier League side as well, so that you've got the balance of competitiveness, but also opportunity and rotation as well.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And I hope that Ethan and Miles do get some minutes, because I think they've been sensational this preseason. They're definitely the two that have stood out for sure. We might as well move on to transfers, bro. You know a hell of a lot more that's happening at the club than I do. A lot of it's just rumours. And what I intend to do on this channel is just share what people are talking about and see what people think about those rumours and whether they believe they're going to happen or not. With you, it's a little bit different because you have a little bit more knowledge than I do. Let's talk about outgoings, because for me, there's got to be people sold before players are coming in. From what we hear, it looks like that's going to be the case anyway. We might as well start top to bottom. Eddie Nketiah. What's going on here, in your opinion? Because Marseille look to have been lose a little bit of interest from what we hear. They've gone in with a bid of 27 million, which we've rejected. And the latest is that they're not really going back in with another bid. Now, there was some rumours and reports today suggesting that perhaps Arsenal are looking to come to more of a compromise because they believe that they want to try and do some business to get Eddie out of the door. What do you see happening here, bro?
Yeah, so that was 27 million euros, so about 23 million pounds was that third bid. Arsenal standing firm on their valuation, which, to my understanding, is around 30 million pounds, 35 million euros. I think he will eventually go this summer. It is a move I think that Arsenal and the player needs to make. It's just about where's this middle ground between Arsenal's principled stance on their valuation and then how high the interest that exists this summer is willing to go. We heard that Marseille were looking perhaps at El Yawahi, the Lens striker, as maybe an alternative. We also heard that with Bournemouth in talks with Spurs for Solanke, that they could then look at Nketiah as being a replacement for Solanke, which would make a lot of sense. So Arsenal will be aware of the fact that there could be opportunities that open up for Nketiah as well. Nico in the chat says about Moukoko. Mokoko's not related to the Nketiah situation at all. So that's completely separate, as has been reported by loads of different places. It's not related whatsoever. Marseille still have an interest in bringing in another forward, because of course they lost Aubameyang. It's worth pointing out. Greenwood's come in, but obviously he's more of a wide player. And the Moukoko situation is a loan with there's a clause there, but they see Nketiah potentially as someone that they could sign as an investment for a long-term project that they've got going on. But Bournemouth are still there. There's been noises of Palace and Wolves as well. I think he will go before the window closes. But you're right. I think it's us signing a forward could be somewhat reliant on moving him on, perhaps.
I agree with that. Let's talk about Reece Nelson, because the last we heard, Leicester were interested. Personally, think it would be a good move for him. He'll get first team football. Loan with an obligation, which I think PSR is now allowing everyone to go in for. What I will say about this, though, is that I don't know the actual rumours of the numbers, Tom. Like I've heard 15 million they want to spend. We want like north to 20, 25. And it looks like they're now out of the budget. Today they're going in, it seems, for Ajax is Steven Bergwijn, who we know from Tottenham. that would suggest they're probably moving on from Reece Nelson. What are we saying about this? Is this going to happen, but not to Leicester? Are Leicester trying to sort of smoke screen us a bit? Like, what do you think is going to happen here?
There's always like little niche and nuanced moves by clubs. They suddenly look and they leak things to the media about maybe they're after Nelson, but they leak things that they're going after Bergwijn, so it panics Arsenal into worrying or something like that. Again, I think Nelson will probably go and needs to probably go, which is a shame because he's one of the players where you really kind of long for him to succeed in a way. But despite that, it seems by the fact that he was not included in in any minutes yesterday at the Emirates in that game, and it seems surprising that he wasn't given any time at all. But maybe that's indicative of where his situation is, similar to Smith Rowe, of course, when he didn't come off the bench against Bournemouth. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think Arsenal would be, getting 15 million would be great, I think, for Nelson, to be honest. So if that came through the doors as an offer from anyone, I'll be looking to take it. But yeah, again, it might be one where the opportunity at the end of the window. But again, like both Nketiah and Nelson on these wages of like £100,000 per week, these are very normal wages, as I've pointed out before, for a club like Arsenal or in a title challenge. If you've got players that have made as many appearances as these guys have, when they're signing contracts at 23, 24 years of age, you're putting them on that amount of money. Like, that's just the reality of a situation for players of that age. And so by keeping them,
get that at these clubs, or
potentially, there's definitely. I mean, you look at the inflation of wages across the Premier League in particular, and these teams will have money, especially Bournemouth. If they move Solanke on, so if they're willing to, spend the money on these guys to bring them through the door, they'll pay them the wages. But you've also got to factor in that maybe those players, having made that wage at Arsenal, may be willing to take a slight cut as well to get the more regular game time wherever they go to.
Yeah, listen, I think they might have to take a pay cut. I don't know if they're going to get the 100k they got here, but I could be wrong. What would be reasonable? Give me a figure that would be reasonable for both Eddie and Nelson in your eyes, Tom, because a lot of people have suggested that we should be trying to get 40 million for Eddie and 25 million for Nelson. I just think that's unrealistic. These lads are just not going to go for that. Like, I'd love to get that, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that's going to happen, bro. I really don't. Where are you at?
Yeah, if we got 40 million for the pair, I'd be happy. If you offered me 40 million for both, 25 for Nketiah, 15 for Nelson, I'm taking it. Yeah.
See, I'm with you, and a lot of people think that's outrageous, and it's like we should be getting them because Liam Delap went for 25 and Elliot Anderson went for, unfortunately,
people fall into loads of traps with like comparing them to other sales. It's just not the same.
No, I'm with you. I think we're actually on the same wavelength there. I think if we could get 40 for them both, let's just do it and then move on and try and get the next signing we need in. Let's move to the back because there's 3 players that are linked to rumoured with moves away. 2 defenders and a goalkeeper. Obviously, we've got Kieran Tierney, who's currently injured at the moment. Reports today coming over from Celtic and Real Sociedad, where he was on loan, obviously. Kivior in Serie A, some interest from what we hear. And Aaron Ramsdale, mate, Premier League clubs. It doesn't say what clubs. I think Wolves was one, but I don't know what other clubs they are. Circulating a loan with an obligation. This loan with an obligation is just, everyone wants that, don't they? It's mad, isn't it? I think that's PSR, if I'm honest. What's that? What's your thoughts on these 3, man? Are they going to be Arsenal players or are they going to all go?
So Ramsdale, Kivior, and who's the third one? Tierney. Tierney, I don't think will go because, to my understanding, his injury is not great. It's a significant hamstring injury. I don't expect to see him back, even in training. Not really anytime soon. So I don't think he'll be sold. He wasn't even among the players listed on the program. Yesterday.
That's bizarre, that, isn't it? Yeah,
it is weird. I don't know why he's not there. I mean, he's still an Arsenal player. We're paying him, so yeah. We'd do well to sell him in the January window, I think, but it may be one that just ends up kind of expiring, and that's just bad luck because of the injury. He would have been sold this summer, but sadly,
it's such a shame, this one, man. Honestly, I really like him.
So do I. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's just a very decent left back who would do well at a decent Premier League club. And he didn't pull up trees at Sociedad last season. He had his injuries again, as he always does, which also holds him back. So he's just a very decent left back, great attitude, great personality, So, it's a shame. But hopefully when he does get back fit and gets that move, hopefully he can fulfill, whatever's left of that's in the in the books. Kivior I'd keep because, Kivior, Timber, Calafiori, of course, still bedding in, Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, those three besides Calafiori are all suffer with injury issues. They can't necessarily be relied upon. So I'd keep Kivior at the moment. I like him as a player. I think he offers us decent depth. This is a guy that started at City, as I always continually point out, in a really important game, helped us to keep a clean sheet. I know he got ripped up by Leroy Sané. That happens to a lot of defenders. It's quite frankly, Sané wouldn't be as good as he is if there wasn't a lot of defenders as, at the top level not being ripped apart by him throughout his career. So I don't think he should be judged necessarily based on that. He's a decent player. He has good depth. He plays in 3 different positions, left back, left centre half, and plays right centre half, and has done a few times for us as well. So I don't see a need to sell him. There doesn't seem to be, even though there's said to be interest from Serie A, it's not really materialised into anything formal. And then the last one was
Ramsdale.
Ramsdale, yes. Ramsdale's that's a weird one because the situation with Ramsdale is quite fluid. From my understanding, from kind of things I heard at the end of last year and bleeding into this year, he's really conscious about the next step. He obviously wants a move because he wants more game time, but he's really conscious, it seems, about who it is that he goes to, and I think he's conscious about taking too much of a step down from Arsenal at this stage of his career. He's very conscious about the England situation, obviously. Southampton was said to be interested. Imagine, for instance, Southampton sign him and then get relegated. That's a disaster for Ramsdale. So I am empathetic with his point of view. But the problem that he's got is that most of the teams that I think he looks at and goes, that'd be a decent move, aren't looking for a goalkeeper that is going to cost as much as Arsenal are asking for Ramsdale. So I think a loan is probably what will end up happening. Not even one with an option or an obligation, just like a straight loan where he goes away, has a very good season playing week in, week out, and then earns the price tag that Arsenal want for him at the moment. That's what I'd be most inclined to predict happening at this stage. So, that's where I'm at with him.
It's a shame with that because if we end up loaning out Ramsdale, we don't get any form of option to buy, obligation to buy with the end of it.
No.
That would be a bit of a disaster for me. If I'm honest, I'd rather keep him than load him out for the year.
But what if he doesn't want to? You can't keep a guy that's fuming and not playing. Not fuming. He's not unprofessional. He's a perfect professional. But it's really damaging, I think, for him to be another year being a number 2.
I think, Ødegaard was right really the other day when he said, I think we've completely messed this up. We should have sold him and then bought Raya. And then we get ideally that's what we could have done and get the money back for him and then go. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near our money back if we're trying to sell him because no one's going to pay 30 million for him, are they? Do you know what I mean? It's just going to be hard. As for Tierney, I'm with you. I don't see anything happening until potentially January transfer window if he does leave at all. And as for Kivior, it's gone very quiet now in Serie A because a lot of clubs are interested, but it looked as if I thought he wanted first team football and wanted to leave, but that's gone very, very quiet. I actually would keep him because I feel like centre-backs were quite short. Other than Gabriel Saliba, we've got Calafiori to cover. We do need more than that. So for me, Kivior comes in. I think that's good. We've got Calafiori and Timber that can all play left-back. Kivior can back up Gabriel as needed. And then obviously we've got Saliba and Timber and Ben White, Tomiyasu. We kind of covered and stacked there if we keep Kivior. So, and we've still got Zinchenko, like you say. So we've actually got quite a good defence now. I don't really want to be selling too many more of them. So there we go. Listen, let's talk about incomings because I think after the outgoings, we should hopefully then see some incomings. Talk to me about Mikel Merino, mate. I have absolutely no idea what's happening here. The rumours I read are that there's some kind of problems over negotiation. An offer hasn't actually been agreed. Sorry, a bid hasn't actually been accepted yet, and there's not been a fee agreed yet. There was rumours yesterday. I reported that there's a kind of 5 million owed value that they're now negotiating about.
Where are you reading that?
That was what somebody had messaged to me, saying that there's £5 million now that Sociedad are saying, well, Arsenal can pay that. We're not paying it, blah, blah, blah. But actually, it's ours to pay. So I don't know if that's all rubbish, though, mate. So for me, it's a real strange one that hasn't been done yet, Tom, because I thought this one was going to be quite simple, but obviously not.
Well, I mean, this is what I mean. It's been made out this entire time. It's been reported elsewhere that it's close, it's advanced, it's the final stages, it's concrete, all of these things, But as I reported on Saturday, Arsenal at that point hadn't made an official bid. The last I heard is that they have not made an official bid. Sunday, my colleague Kaya reported, that there was kind of people at the hierarchy level that, we're not entirely convinced that he's the best option in midfield. And then on Monday, James McNicholas at The Athletic also reported that Arsenal are they're interested, but they're considering their options in midfield as well. Because the big issue with Merino is his age profile. You're adding a 28-year-old to a midfield that's already got Jorginho and Thomas Partey in it. So you've already got kind of this older element, if you like, to the midfield. It doesn't bother me personally, because I think it's a good short-term deal, and Jorginho and Partey will be leaving, I think, at the end of this season. So you'd need necessarily some experience in that to take over, and I think he can give you that immediate quality that Arsenal are looking for in the midfield. But it seems that there are some, there's some situations there. Obviously, a lot of Arsenal fans have reacted to the Zubimendi news with Liverpool. That situation obviously is quite fluid as well. Suggestions have been from Spain that he would be willing to make that switch now. And I think obviously that's come off the back of the European Championships. If you're a player who's just, got the taste of winning the Euros and then Liverpool come in for you, even if previously your mindset has been very much, I want to stay and be loyal to Real Sociedad, I think winning that trophy might have given him a bit of the flavour, if you like. And now Liverpool have come in. I know a lot of Liverpool fans have kind of tried to give it to Arsenal fans and the whole, you couldn't convince him, we are, etc. Arsenal haven't been in for Zubimendi for quite a while, as a player that we liked in January of this year, and he didn't want to leave. So there was no kind of progress on that. Liverpool have come in at a good time. Arsenal have got a lot of DMs. We've got Rice, we've got Partey, we've got Jorginho, you've got Lewis-Skelly coming through. So spending 60 million euros, which has to be paid all up front because it's a release clause. It's not a case of installments. It has to be paid up front, which I don't see Arsenal having the freedom to do. I just think all of those things combined mean that, Arsenal are never really going to go and compete with Liverpool for Zubimendi at this stage. And Merino as well. He's not been included in this weekend's squad for Sociedad, but Zubimendi has for their friendly against Union Berlin. But supposedly he has a small strain after coming back from time away, Merino. So maybe that explains that. But yeah, that's the reality. Is that there's not much more to it than that. There's talks ongoing, and they continue to keep going, and hopefully we get a breakthrough. I want him. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as simple as has been made out to people.
Yeah, I think it's been made out even by reliable journalists, to be fair, that this one's close and it's going to get done in days. And obviously the days have turned to weeks. And now people are getting a little bit worried about this one potentially not happening. But this did happen with Calafiori. If you remember, it was taking forever and ever, and we did get it over the line. I imagine this one will happen. As for Zubimendi, it's quite funny. I was on a stream not long ago and somebody said to me, I think Zubimendi wants to follow the footsteps of Xabi Alonso, where he started at Real Sociedad and go to Real Madrid. And I said, oh, blimey, he'll probably go to Liverpool next then. And now it looks like he has. So that is probably a good signing for Liverpool, in my opinion.
It would be a very good signing.
Yeah, they need a 6, and they're going to get a 6. He is definitely a 6. I will say, however, if Mikel Arteta wants to play Rice, Merino, Ødegaard, then Zubimendi wouldn't get in our side. So, as much as I think he'd be a good signing,
he starts for them.
He starts for us. So that's what I'm saying. So Liverpool fans might go, he chose us after you. And I'd say, well, of course he did. He's going to play for you. He's not going to play for us. Do you know what I mean? Exactly, so that was what I would come back to that one with. But there we go. But Liverpool fans probably just excited they finally signed someone because it's taken forever. I will say it's a good signing, though. And it is actually, if they get a couple more like that, they'll be up there, if I'm honest. That's for sure. What's going to happen elsewhere then, Tom? Because obviously Calafiori's coming in. We've talking about the players that are probably going out. Marino's the next guy that it looks like is going to be happening, if at all. Is that it for Arsenal, or are we going to go for a forward, whether it be a winger, attacker, or both?
They want one. They want a forward. It won't be a striker. I'd be very shocked if it's a striker. But they want to add another forward, is my knowledge. But who that is the question. We know Merino is the key figure for the midfield options. There are said to be, they're considering potentially others there, but we're unaware. Arsenal have been exceptional at keeping things quiet. You think about the last few summers, 2023, we knew about Rice months, for months. The season before that, we knew about Jesus for months. The season before that, Ben White, we knew Arsenal were looking at him from just before we went to that England camp after getting called up for the first time. we'd known about Arsenal's interest for quite some time. And even the season before that in 2020, Arteta's first summer, we knew Arsenal had an interest in Partey for a long, long time. This is the first summer where really Calafiori's name didn't come out until even after Italy got knocked out of the Euros. Like, it really came out of the quietness. Mikel Merino as well didn't come out as a name until after, because all the things were Arsenal linked with Euro winning Mikel Merino. Those were the headlines, because it actually hadn't emerged until the Arsenal's interest, of course, dates back with these players way before we actually find out about them as journalists, and then of course as fans as well. But it just kind of paints this picture that Arsenal aren't doing anything, which obviously isn't the case. It's just Arsenal have been exceptional at keeping their business very quiet. And it also has not been a good market. This summer has not been good. It hasn't been forthcoming with potential quality like previous windows have. And I always say that I'd much rather Arsenal were smart in how they spend their money than just spending it for the sake of spending it. Because if you sign money and you buy the wrong player, it hamstrings you from buying players in the future in that position, for as much money. And thankfully, we've made very few errors. You look at the investments we've made. Vieira is the most expensive one. And then beyond that, there aren't too many, and mainly at the start of Arteta's era at the club as well, rather than more recently. So, yeah, I hope that fans get the forward that we need. I think Pedro Neto's a name to keep an eye on. Me and Cara both been talking about that on our podcast today. But I really hope that we do gamble. If we are going to gamble, that it is on a wide player, and I would take the gamble on a Neto.
Is that who you want then, Tom? That was my question for you.
Yeah, as I say, I'd love Nico Williams, but I don't see that happening. Because he wants Barca, but even then he seems very content to stay at Athletic Club. Fair play to the guy. Xavi Simons I really liked as well, but he's gone to RB Leipzig for another season on loan because PSG were apparently categorically not selling at all. They were only going to loan him, which to be fair, I would have taken him on loan for the season. But you're really kind of struggling for options out there that that make it. Bakayoko is very specialised left-footed right winger. Why would he sign for Arsenal when Saka's going to play every game? So it's tricky to convince him. So yeah, it's that this market's very, very tough.
It is tough. Let me throw some names at you, and you tell me who you would sign out of the two. Be linked with Yilmaz. Well, very loosely linked with Yilmaz. I know absolutely nothing about him.
I wouldn't buy into that. Do you remember the links to Ferdi Kalioglu?
Oh, Kalioglu. Yeah.
Well, think about how much BS that was. That should give you all the indication you need.
That's not a player that you would like, even if it was true, though, Tom. No,
I don't know anything about him, so I'm fair of me to judge. To be fair, yeah.
Okay. Let's go with Leroy Sané. What about him?
Yeah, I would take him. We talked about him, didn't we, on the last show? And I think that that'd be an exciting arrival. And I think would add a lot of quality to the forward line for sure.
Okay. What about Eze?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to see Eze, but he's not a winger though.
No.
And I'd still think, say if we signed this window for me at the moment is like a 5 out of 10. I think Calafiori is an excellent signing for us to have made. If we add the midfielder be that Merino, it becomes a bit of a 6.5 at 7 out of 10 at a push. If you were to add Eze to that, it only ups it by a little bit because he's not necessarily, even though he's a great player, for me, it's not a necessity type signing for me. Because if you've got, say, Merino through the door, he replaces Smith Rowe because he was going to play that. If he was ever playing for us, which is rarely, he was playing in the midfield 3, and that's where Merino, of course, comes in. And if Eze comes in, he would be playing as an attacking midfielder. He might play some games in wide positions, but I really want us to go for a winger, not like a playmaker type player when he's in wide positions. So that's why I like Sané. I'd rather we sign Sané than Eze, and some people might say that's mad, but I just think there's that much of a need for a natural winger that a profile like Eze just isn't necessarily. We're not desperate for that.
Do you think with Eze, this is why I would like Eze, because I feel like he can play in the attacking 8, like you said, the attacking 10. He can play both wide positions as well. I just think the versatility is there to cover. Now, I'm not saying we need someone to cover all 4 positions, but it is good that he can actually play there. where I kind of agree with what you're saying is I don't think he's the out and out winger that makes everyone go, oh my God, Eze's going to win Arsenal the title. You're absolutely right. But I wonder where that player is, Tom. And Nico Williams might have been that. Leroy Sané might be that. I don't know. So I suppose my last one to throw to you is Pedro Neto over why you think he'd be better than Eze. So
yeah, it leans into what I just said. As I said, I just think we're in such need of a natural winger and adding that profile to that right hand side, because if Ødegaard's out, it's a huge loss. But you do have Nwaneri, you do have Vieira, you do have Havertz as attacking options in the midfield. If we lose Saka, we're really struggling. You can play Nelson, you can play Vieira, you can play Nwaneri maybe, but the drop off from Saka is huge.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest area and the biggest worry I had going into the season. I still thought central midfield was absolutely key for us. We had to add a central midfielder. But next on my list after that was always very closely behind. Have to add that player that's going to bring us, competition and options and rotation for Saka, because injuries were creeping into his season last year. Yeah, because he gets kicked all the time, and you need to give him more of a break. And I just think at the moment there's not many people that I would in this squad that I would risk, dropping him for and feel comfortable leaving him out the team in a game. So we need to bring in that player. So yeah, Neto and Sané I think are good options, but I'm like 50-50 about whether it's going to happen or not.
Yeah, it's mad. I believe we will get one more after Marino if he does come in, which I believe Marino will eventually come in. I don't know if that's enough, Tom. I will ask you lastly before we do come to a close. Does not having a striker again put a lot of pressure on the team, the manager, etc.? The reason I say that is not because Arsenal don't score goals, because we do. We score a lot of goals. But there has been moments, hasn't there, last season where you think, where is that finisher? Around with the winter time, everyone was going, get a striker in January. It's got to be Tony. We can't score goals. Blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
look how bad that would have been.
Yeah, that didn't work. That didn't work out. So I suppose my question is like, is it a risk not to buy a striker? Is my first question. And second of all, like, let's be real. It's been 5 years now, and Mikel Arteta has only bought Gabriel Jesus and Havertz, who aren't really the Thierry Henry, Aubameyang type strikers. I know they're not going to be as good as them. I get that, but that's what I'm saying. The out and out nines. We haven't really bought any out and out nines, because even Willian and Trossard aren't out and out nines either. They're the only 4 attackers that they've bought at the club. That's quite crazy, really, to think that it's been 5 years and we bought 4 attacking players, 2 of which aren't forwards. It's crazy.
It is. It's worth pointing out that Arsenal under Arsene Wenger spent upwards of 100 million in 6 months on Lacazette and Aubameyang, and we went backwards.
Fair point.
And under Arteta, we've invested a lot of money in the defence and the midfield, and we've established ourselves as title challengers. I agree that the next kind of the missing piece of the starting puzzle is our Erling Haaland. That I agree with you.
Who's Alexander Isak, right?
And look, I you know me, and we know
that's who I believe it is anyway.
That is, and I remember someone asking me, it may have even been you, saying like, would you sign Isak and no one else? And I think at the start of the window, I was like, no, I don't think so, because I think we need a defender, a midfielder, and a winger, and this striker that we keep talking about. And I think that maybe we benefit more from, bringing in those 3. But as this window's going on, and as a midfielder and a winger, look, there's not less likely, because I think we will get a midfielder at least, but certainly in the wing areas, it seems that less likely the more the window goes on. I'd almost like to retract that. I would take Isak. And maybe that's harsh on Calafiori. Maybe he'll turn out to be an amazing player.
I'm with you. And do you know what it would do? It would make rival fans. I mean, I titled this as a bit of a laugh, really. Rival fans are scared of Arsenal, because I keep seeing on everyone's videos, Arsenal are scary. Arsenal look devastating.
Yeah,
Arsenal are back.
And if any honest fan agrees with them.
Well, there we go. Arsenal look great and all this. So I'm like, do you know what? That's what I'll title this then. Apparently we're scary and everyone's scared of us. But the reason why I mean that, and I brought that up now, is because I actually think they genuinely would be if we bought Isak. I genuinely do believe Manchester City will go, oh my God, that's not what I wanted to see happen. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if we didn't sign anybody and maybe we bought in Pedro Neto or Eze, they might be a bit like, Phew, no striker. Oh wow, we can kick off now. We'll go win the league. And I honestly believe that they will feel that. They will feel that way. Now I don't know if they're going to win the league or not. I would have them as winning the league at the moment as things stand. I think it'd be foolish of me not to, seeing as they've done 4 in a row. Why can't they do 5 in a row with Pep and one of the best teams in the world? But I do believe that if we will get closer with sorting out our left-hand side, which I believe Marino and Calafiori will do. It's just that killer instinct, Tom. And I just look at that situation in the box where Havertz and Jesus have done well. I also look at the situation in the box where Havertz and Jesus have missed and think, oh my God, i.e. West Ham last year, Liverpool,
Yeah, of course.
Bayern Munich away. You can name the games. So I'm like, that frustrates me because I'm like, we need to do something. Now, listen, we might go and get a forward still, and we might be sitting there going, oh my God, Tom, can you believe it? Well, I mean, talking about that. That could happen. I just don't know that I see it, Tom. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm being pessimistic. I just don't see it coming in. I don't know why.
No, neither do I. And I think that's because of the market. Like, Šeško at the beginning of the window was something they saw as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And like, he had a release clause at, I think it's 55 million. Might have been euros, but it was around that figure. And, you know, he decided to stay. And I respect that decision because I think that, you know, he would have come into Arsenal and not necessarily started straight away. He probably would have built up to that, but he knows he's going to start week in, week out at 20 years of age at Leipzig, a really good team to develop at. And the summer of 2025, he could have had a season where he scored a lot of goals and then gets that big move. And Arsenal will keep track of him and are going to keep track of him this season. But beyond that, you know, you got Gyökeres there and you got Osimhen. Like, they are the two strikers that could go. And to get Gyökeres, you have to pay his release clause, which, as I always say, if you pay a release clause, it's money up front. You can have a negotiation with the team and see if they'd be willing, but why would they? That Sporting have no need to sell him. These Portuguese teams are very well off. You know, they're never desperate to sell because teams like Chelsea come along and pay buyout clauses for Enzo Fernandez. So, you know, they don't need to sell. And Osimhen, like you talk about, you want a clinical finisher. This is a guy whose numbers last season were worse than Havertz in finishing. So, like, that's where we're at. I agree. I'd love to see a clinical striker come in. I'd love us to go and get that guy. I just don't necessarily know if that guy's out there. And if he is, it's Isak. You know, I think Isak is the guy. I agree. I think he'd be great, but it's not happening. It's never going to happen, I don't think, sadly. And then Gyökeres is the gamble. And it's a huge gamble. And it could either completely undermine an entire season, or it could be the thing that takes you that 3 points. And that's what they've got to weigh up when it comes to a centre forward, I think.
Listen, you always back up how you're feeling, and you've done exactly that, bro. I feel we do need a striker like you. I'd love it to be Isak like you. I just don't see that happening, bro. And I don't think we even have 150 million if that's what's it's going to cost to get him out of Newcastle. But I'd love us to. I think he would be a phenomenal signing, and I honestly believe that would be the signing that everybody goes, Arsenal already. Wow. So I'm gutted it's probably not going to be this summer that we get that over the line. But listen, we could be surprised. We could get a forward in that we think is exciting. We could go for it 100%, but it's got a long way to go at the moment. Tom, just lastly, before I do let you go, we're obviously going into the Wolves game. We've got Lyon first. Do you think this Arsenal side looks prepared and ready as ever going into this new season, or do you still think it needs a couple of games before we look at it properly?
Well, if we play like we did yesterday, we'll be fine because that was excellent. Of course, Saka and Rice need some more minutes, and they hopefully they'll start the game on the weekend and get those minutes. I want to see Calafiori. Hopefully, we will see Calafiori. Timber, you know, I'm told he'll be back in training soon, so he may not be ready for the start of the season. But you know, it's not serious. I'm told that issue he's got. And then, yeah, I just think that. I look at where we are. Before we made any signings, this is a team that finished 2 points off City, who have added Savinho as their only signing this summer. You know, we're a year older, a year wiser. You've got players like Havertz who aren't coming into this season as just having signed. You know, there's a player now that's got a year under his belt at Arsenal, Rice as well. And we've got extra, you know, reinforcement in terms of Calafiori and Timber, who is, you know, to use the classic quote, like a new signing. And hopefully we'll have one, maybe if we're lucky, 2 more come through the door between now and the end of the window. And it puts in a great place. You know, we are more ready than we've ever been, you know, to take on a title challenge. So let's hope it delivers.
Yeah, let's hope so indeed. Listen, absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Make sure you do me a favor and hit the like button. There's being close to 400 of you here. Make sure you do me a favor and hit the like button. We're just over 100. Let's get that up to 200, please, people. All you got to do is hit the like button and subscribe. Please make sure you show Manscaped some love as well by clicking in the pinned comment. Take you straight to the website. Click on Beard and Face Beard Hedger and it will take 20% off using that link. And also make sure you go follow Tom on the Gooner Talk TV. He will be there every single morning, 8 a.m, talking all things Arsenal transfers. So if you're not subscribed already, please make sure you do and help Tom on the way to his next target, which is
60k.
60k. There we go. Absolutely brilliant. Make sure you get them over to Tom. Tom, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much, bruv.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Great to chat with you.
Top man. Listen, we'll see you soon, people. I'll be back tonight. Take care. See you next time. Laters.
Yes, people, Manscaped is back. But this time, it's not for below the belt grooming. Manscaped brings to you the Beard Hedger, the best product on the market when it comes to beard trimmers. The Beard Hedger is unique due to its number of radiant settings. As someone who's purchased this, I won't turn to any other beard trimmer. Check it out for yourself at manscaped.com. And don't forget to use code FTM20